Laziness is your best friend. Never do anything twice that can be automated once. So this is like the base of my talk. And it's more focused on chatops with deployment and not installing software locally just for the sake of deployment as a developer. I'm Geshan Manandhar. I call myself a senior software engineer, a tech solution provider, an agile follower, and a conditional microservices believer because I don't believe microservices fit all the use cases. So this is a simple intro about me. I come from the Himalayan country of Nepal, and the only country that has a non-rectangular flag, just for your knowledge. And for the past 4 years, I've been living in Dubai. I think enough about me. So let's see what you can expect out of this talk. But before that, I would want to ask some questions. Let's start with the most silly one. And that is, does anyone of you use chat at work? Probably everyone, right? Now the other question is, how many of you use chatbots at work? Few of them, a lot fewer than the ones that raised their hand. Another question, how many of you use Docker in production? Even lesser hands. So I'll link these things up as I progress. So basically, this talk is going to be about what is chatops. I'm going to reveal how the term was coined and what people say about it, plus what are the components of a basic chatops stack. Then I'm going to go into why even do chatops? How does it help you? I mean, does it add value? Does it give you the business edge? So why do chatops? Then I'm going to go through how we are doing chatops at Namshi since almost 10, 12 months now. So how are we really leveraging it for our benefit? Then later, towards the end, I will show you, or at least give some hints about how you can start using chatops in a matter of minutes, and not even hours, and not even without a DevOps team. So even without any ops team, just developers like us, like you, like me, can be using chatops in a matter of minutes. But the talk is basically focused on chatbots and deployments. So let's start. What is chatops? The term chatops was coined at GitHub in 2008. And as Jesse Newland puts it, it's putting tools right in the middle of the conversation. So he focuses more on the fact that it should be based on conversations. It should be a part of your chat. So Jesse Newland introduced this in, I think, RubyConf 2013. So that's when the term was kind of made more public. And I think by that time, they also made public their chatbot framework called Hubot. So that's what Jesse Newland showed the world, OK, chatops is like this. Then you have someone from Atlassian, the guys behind HipChat, Sean Regan. He says it is a model that connects people, tools, process, and automation, and the focus is also on a transparent workflow. So whatever is happening should be transparent to the whole team, or whoever is related to it. So the stakeholders must know about what's happening. And the focus is also there in automation. So the tools and processes needs to be automated, and that's another focus of what chatops is. Then there is Geshan Manandhar, who wrote Chatops for Dummies. He is more focusing on CAMS. That's basically culture of automation, measurement, and sharing. I think he wants to focus more upon measurement and sharing, where you could measure or look at the logs and see what's happening. And you would know what's happening inside or whatever has been done by the bots and how is it doing the work. So the culture of automation, measurement, and sharing is the focus. I look into it as a way to automate your tasks within a chat conversation, of course, and making it visible to the whole team. So if you are able to automate your tasks within a chat conversation, and that's visible to all the related stakeholders, that's probably chatops for me. Now let's look into the components of how you can build your own chatops stack. So the first, and the one that almost everyone is using here, are surely the chat clients. So you could be using Slack, HipChat, Campfire, Skype, Google Hangout, I don't know, whatever the chat tool that you have. So one part of the whole chatops stack is already in use to almost everyone here. Then the next part are the chatbots. Here, Whobot by GitHub is the granddaddy of all the chatbots because it was one of the first that was made open source, and Geshan Manandhar has already has talked a lot about it, and that's where the term chatops was coined. So you have Whobot by GitHub written in CoffeeScript, but it is not necessary to write all your stuff in CoffeeScript. If you don't like CoffeeScript, you could write your own custom stuff in JavaScript or even ES6 right now. And then later, it was kind of inspired by the Ruby community, and they made Lita, which is also popular. And even after that, it was, again, kind of copied into the Python scene, where they made So these pictures are like in order of popularity, where Whobot being the most popular and being the least popular. These are not only the three chatops bots or chatops framework that are available. There are many some in JavaScript, some in Go, but these are like the popular ones. The next part is surely all your custom scripts, where you could do the things that you want to do. So basically, you have a bot, and then you teach the bot whatever you want to get done. For example, deploy an application. For example, get me the logs of the past half an hour. For example, boot me a machine in AWS. So you could virtually teach anything that has an API to the bot, and the bot can do it for you. So when you put all these three things together, then you get your chatops stack. And then, depending upon how you mix them up, you get pretty good results. So after this, why even use chatops? Now let's say you have your chatops stack structured, set up. So let's look at the reasons on why using chatops. But first, let's look at who is already using chatops. I mean, who is already using chatops right now? Do you have a question? No, OK. Oh, I get it. You're saying you are using chatops. Sorry. That's fine. OK, so GitHub, as they have a lot of remote employees, so they were a big push. I mean, the ones who started it, let's say, and who kind of publicized it to the whole world that you can do stuff with chatbots. And it helps you a lot. So GitHub is using chatops. Even Box.com is using chatops. The logo there of Young Innovations is a company we co-founded in Nepal. So and they are very good with Laravel. So it is there even in Nepal. So chatops is very popular, is what I want to say. There are even more companies like 500 pixels. 500px, however we call them, the great photo sharing app where photographers upload amazing pictures. And even Hillary for America, HFA, is using chatops. So chatops is quite popular. It's being used all over the world. Now let's look at why exactly use chatops. The first reason I see to use chatops is it makes the devs happy and the ops or DevOps people even happier. But how? Why? The first thing is the devs are free from installing any extra software just for the sake of deployment. Let's say if you are using Capistrano, then you have to deploy the right version of Ruby, the right version of Capistrano. For example, if you are using Fabric, you need to deploy the right version of Python. And that's the same thing. With right chatops setup, you don't need to install the right version of Ruby anymore, because everything is on the server. Right? Everything is on the server, and then there is a daemon chatbot always listening to you. As soon as you tell him something or tell it something, it'll start doing it. That means you don't need to install the right version of Ruby or even the right version of Python. To add to this, let's say if you have two projects, and one is using Ruby 2 with Capistrano 2, and the other one is using Ruby 3 with Capistrano 3. That means you have to maintain multiple versions of Ruby in your own machine. Then you need to deal with all this RVM stuff, and OK, am I in the right version or not? Shall I prefix the Capistrano command with something so that it picks up the right thing? So you can get over with all these types of nuances, problems as developers, and deployments becomes very easy. The other reason is anyone with permission can deploy from anywhere, any device, anytime. As I said, that the bot is a daemon process, so it's up there 24/7. It's not like going to your colleague and asking him to deploy. It's not like going to your DevOps guy and asking him to deploy. So let's say 2 a.m. in the morning, you think of something and then you want to deploy, and then you are in your bed and with a mobile phone, you can do that. You are going to work, you are in a train, you have internet, and then you just say, bot, please deploy me this particular application, this particular branch or tag, and by the time you reach your office, it's already there. You can start testing. So it becomes that easy. Another thing is security. So it does not need all the developers to have SSH access to all the servers where the code will be deployed. By this, the ops become very happy because they don't need to compromise on security and give access to the whole server to all the developers where the code is deployed. For example, in Capistrano, you have a list of servers, and then it executes the task via SSH on all the servers. That means anyone who can deploy has access to the servers and can go into the servers. Plus, it also helps the ops to not do the boring tasks over and over again and let the bots do it. For example, let's say if a colleague of yours asks the DevOps guy to get 500 errors of the last half an hour, he has to go to the guy, ask, and then the guy has to fetch it, and then give it back to the developer. This is a very time-consuming and a very manual process. If you have set it up, if you have taught your chatbot how to do it, then the chatbot can take care of it, and it can be done in a matter of seconds. And yes, each task done by everyone is visible to the whole team. So they have the whole context of what's happening. By that, I mean, let's say if the VP of your company walks to you and asks, what's happening with this particular application? What did you guys deploy yesterday? So you could just ask or tell the VP to please check the hash staging deployments channel. And you have all the logs of yesterday. You know exactly what's deployed, who deployed it, and when was it deployed. So this becomes a lot easier for all kind of communication. Now, let's look at how we are doing chatops at Namshi. Before that, I would just like to explain some of the tech stack that we are using at Namshi. And I think even before that, I have to tell you guys what is Namshi. So Namshi is a fashion e-commerce venture of Rocket Internet in the Middle East, stationed in Dubai. We serve all the 5-6 GCC countries that we have. So basically, it's a fashion e-commerce company. To relate to it with here, it's like Zalando, for the guys who know Zalando. And concerning our tech stack, we are heavily using JavaScript, Node.js, and a lot of JavaScript in the front end with Angular, React. And we have a lot of PHP as well. And we are big believers of microservices architecture. So currently, we have around 55 microservices running at Namshi. And on top of it, we are using some Python and some Go as well. So that's moreover how our tech stack is structured. But still, a big chunk of our backend APIs are still PHP on Symfony. And all the other apps that we build nowadays, all the new apps are built with JavaScript, Node.js, and front end. And in the front end, also JavaScript for sure, with some framework like Angular. We recently started using React, and I think we are liking it pretty much. And yes, all of our applications are Dockerized. We are big fans of Docker. Even our dev, even for working in the dev environment, we use Docker a lot. So all of our applications are Dockerized, and all of our code runs on AWS, and we use a Salt Stack to manage, orchestrate our servers. And again, coming back to the deployment, we use Capistrano and Kubernetes to do all the deployments. So Kubernetes manages all of our Docker containers. It is very good at orchestrating the Docker containers. Capistrano is used, I think, only in one app, the big backend app we have. So basically, these are our deployment tools. This is how we automate our deployments. Let's look at a quote from another ex-GitHub employee, Zach Holman. He says, deployments should be boring, straightforward, and stress-free, which is a very good statement, I think. And I guess most of you would agree with it. Most of you would agree with it. But the thing is, 4 years back, our deployments were not either straightforward or hassle-free. They were kind of a pain. So this is an email 4 years back. If you can read it, the first email says, please deploy this particular application and this particular tag. So basically what was happening is our dev team was in Dubai, and our DevOps team, the system was in Turkey. So we had to send an email to them, and none of the dev teams had any access to the servers. So we had to send an email to them, and then they would deploy our software, and then you would get a second email like that saying, done. And then we would be able to test our changes on that particular environment, be it staging or live. And then we would tell them back, thank you guys, all the code worked pretty well. Yes, the deployment was kind of manual, but look at the communication problem, right? I mean, we had to send an email, the guys in Turkey, the system guys had to deploy, and then we had to, again, come back to them with email. Let's fast forward 4 years back. Sorry, 4 years forward now. We have our chatops stack. And as I already said, we are big fans of JavaScript. So we are using Whobot, which is obviously open sourced by GitHub. And we are using Slack. I think that's pretty popular these days. Actually, we had our bot already when we were using HipChat. And then when we moved to Slack, our transition was smooth because we wrote code for Whobot and not for HipChat. So with Whobot, as it supports multiple adapters from Slack, HipChat, Skype, Gmail, even to Telegram, so it is a lot easier. You write kind of the chat client agnostic code on Whobot, and then it just works even if you switch the chat client, in which, in our case, we switched from HipChat to Slack. And last but not the least, we have all our custom scripts that can do stuff for us. So what stuff? What can the chatbot at Namshi do for us? Primarily, chatbot at Namshi can deploy an application. As I already said, we use Capistrano and Kubernetes. So chatbot at Namshi can deploy an application using either one of those, where Kubernetes is used a lot because all of our applications are Dockerized. The next thing the chatbot can do is it can lock an application. What do I mean by lock an application? So let's take an example. I want to deploy an application called QC, or a service called QC, short for quality check. And then I deploy my particular version, let's say 1, to the staging server. And I am testing it. In the middle of it, I find out the thing that I was testing is not there. And as I go and look into the version that was deployed, I find out that one of my colleagues deployed 2 minutes after I deployed, and the code is overridden, and my changes are no longer there. I think you guys have faced this problem, right? If you have a staging environment and multiple developers are deploying it, if there is a communication gap, your changes would be overridden. So with the chatbot at Namshi, you could just ask the chatbot and say, please log this application for X amount of time, the maximum being 3 hours. And then if someone else tries to deploy that application at the same time, it would say, sorry, this guy has a lock. Either go to him and ask to unlock, or wait for the lock to expire, and then only you can deploy. So this solves a lot of testing problems. And locking an application is generally only possible in the staging environment. Then our chatbot can even fetch the version of an application. This means I can just ask the chatbot, hello, can you give me the version of this particular application on this particular environment? And then it fetches me back the application version. And recently, we have added this around 2 months back. Our chatbot now can even manage remote dev machines, which live on AWS cloud. So by this, we mean it means that some of our developers, mainly the front-end developers, they work on a remote machine because Mac sometimes has issues with Docker, you might know. So they just do all their work on a remote machine so that they can work from anywhere, just SSH into that machine, and then work with it. So this particular script that we wrote recently can bring up a machine or bring it down. Other thing that it does is after 7 p.m., it asks you every half an hour or 1 hour, do you still want to keep up your machine? So then you could say yes or no. If you say no, then it will just kill your machine. Shut it down, actually. Now let's look at the part where we do deployments with the bot. So how does it go? Let's have a visual representation of it. So first, there is a user, which says, Nancy deploy. Nancy is the name of our bot. And then Nancy, which is a who-bot daemon service running always. So it just gets that particular command or request. And then it routes it to, it converts it to a Kubernetes or a kube deploy command, depending upon the app that the person asked to deploy. And it reaches the right server to run that particular command. So it might say cap deploy, blah, 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 or kube deploy this, this, this. And then it will come back to Nancy with the deployment output. So every deployment might not be successful always. So it might say, I could do it, the deployment, or that particular command ran successfully, or say, OK, there was some issue. So then it again comes back to the user saying, well, this is the result of your deployment. Maybe it was fine, or maybe it failed. Depends upon what happened. So this is a screenshot of how we are using Nancy. So at first, I am asking Nancy to give me the revision for an application called Cerberus on the staging environment. And then it replies back, here you go. This is like 2nd of August, and then we deployed Tech 391 by this particular user. And later I say, cap deploy this particular branch to staging, and then Nancy just does that for me in a matter of almost a minute. That's pretty impressive, I guess. And later, I asked Nancy to deploy QC, which is short for quality check, which is a kind of an internal app we have for operations. And these are the kinds of things that we can do, we can ask Nancy to do. So after we started using chatops, the number of deployments kind of skyrocketed, let's say. Because earlier, as a developer, I used to go to the terminal and then say, cap deploy this particular app, this particular version. And then it was not an asynchronous process where I just kind of assign someone or something to do it. I had to look at the logs and see that everything was happening fine. But now with the chatbot, I just go to the chat, type something. I can, again, come back to what I was working on. And then 2 minutes back, there's a notification saying, OK, your deployment is done. Now you can continue with what you were doing. As we have lots of microservices, that means we have lots of deployments every day. And it is not uncommon to deploy like 3 to 5 times in a day. We also believe and we practice atomic deployment. That means only a small change, only one change goes to the live environment at a time. So you can structure your code to be small enough, and then you deploy multiple times. By that, you can test exactly what changed, and then there is very less chance of things conflicting because you are just deploying one particular task or one particular ticket. So that's something that we are practicing. Let's have a look at a demo that I kind of prepared for Laracon. And then I can even show you how we do it with Nancy. But first, let's look at the demo. The demo is available in this URL if you guys want to check. So OK, fine. This is the actual demo, but I would just start with how easy it is to install Fubot. So if you have Yeoman, which is short for Yo, I just make a new directory. And then I can say and then it will start pulling HuBot for me after I do this simple description. So while it's pulling it, let me show you a demo that I've already done. So with HuBot, all you need to do is bin/HuBot after you get the HuBot from GitHub, and then it automatically starts. You could even append a -- adapter to it to make it work with your chat client. Like -- adapter equals to Slack would mean make it work with Slack. -- adapter equals to HipChat would mean make it work with HipChat. And there are lots of adapters available. So it will be your chat client will surely be available in it. So I can first check if the bot is alive, and that's wrong. I can first check that the bot is alive, and it's giving me a backup pong. That means, OK, the bot is alive. Then I can say, Larabot, help. So it will list me all the commands that the bot understands, or all the things that the bot can do. And if you look at this particular command, I wrote it specifically for Laracon, just to test it. So basically, this command gives you a random tweet, or a random latest tweet, with the hashtag Laracon EU. So if I say, Larabot, tell me something about Laracon EU, and hopefully, it might take a bit because it's doing a HTTP call over the internet to get that particular list of tweets. And as the Twitter API is not public, I had to use import IO to kind of hack it through anyhow. So it is telling me, by default, when I run HuBot, it runs with the shell adapter. So as I'm testing it on the shell, it's telling me at shell because it thinks that the user right now is shell. So it just pulled one tweet from, that's pretty difficult to pronounce, GWA. So if I, again, ask it, it will just pull another tweet, another of the latest tweet for that's tagged with Laracon. I could ask it, and as it pulls like around 35 of the latest ones, and it just gives you a random one out of it. So if I show you the code for this, it's like a 30-line code. Where is Atom? I hope it's not here. OK, wait. OK, it's on the other window. Let me drag it up. So this is the structure that HuBot already gives you as soon as you clone it from GitHub. So this is not particularly any difficult thing to do, and I'm doing it in the other window that I'll just show you. And this is the particular code that I wrote to do the thing that I just showed you, to get like the latest tweets that have Laracon EU in it, and then it shows it. So as you can see, there is just one method called fetch random tweet, and it just sends a request to extract.io because all Twitter APIs are protected now. You need a username, an application and all that thing. So I didn't go through the pain of doing that. I just kind of scraped it out from import.io. And it just sends a request. Then it gets the tweets. And among like the top 38, it does a random one and then selects any random tweet from the collected 38 tweets and just sends it back. So it's pretty easy. It's just simple JavaScript code and somewhere around 30 lines of code, and I could do this, I think, in a matter of half an hour, 1 hour maximum. So this is how easy it is to create a bot and do stuff out of it. So let's say if it was a deployment bot, it would just translate whatever you told into a cap deploy this command, and then boom, you're done. So this is how easy it is to create a bot. And this is how easy it was to install it. So if I do bin HuBot, it might show me some errors, but it will run because I don't have Redis and those stuff running. So this is the thing that I cloned before I showed the demo. And if I do here test bot, that's the name of the bot, test HuBot, ping, it is alive. So yeah, not even 2 minutes, and our bot is already alive. But if I do a test bot help, it doesn't have the Laravel command. The tell me about Laracon EU command, because this is the bot that I just cloned out of GitHub's repository. I would just like to give a small demo of deploying an application. Bear with me, it's pretty difficult for me to read it from there, but let's see. So this is Nancy, and this is me. So I can say ref for, let's say, Eric, which is our app for tracking on staging. Boom. It is able to fetch me the last revision, if you can see. And then it says, blah, blah, this particular guy deployed in this particular date and this particular version. I will just show you a demo of a deployment. So this is one of the applications, one of the microservices we have for verification. So the government of Qatar needs an ID of while to deliver a package. So if you need to deliver something to Qatar, you need an ID of the person who's receiving it. So for that, and for an e-commerce company, we had to get all the IDs of the people who would order from Qatar. So this is basically a place where you can upload your ID even after you have ordered. So if you missed while ordering, so you can still come here and upload it. So this is a very simple app to just upload your ID. And let me try and deploy a version to it. So I could say at Nancy, probably I have it here. It's easier for me to copy. Yeah. So Nancy deploy verify, which is the name of the app. And I tell it to deploy that particular branch or tag, which is called Nancy test in this case, and the environment I want it to deploy. So I'm asking Nancy deploy verify app, the branch called, or the tag called test, Nancy-test to staging. And as this is a Docker container that has already been built up, so it will not take long for it to deploy. And it even tells me how long it might take. This is kind of heuristic upon how many machines do I need to deploy or how many Docker containers do I need to pull up. So as there is only one Docker container, it's saying, OK, it might finish in 40 seconds, but I think it finished even earlier. So it shows the deployment output, and then the things have changed. So let's verify this. There should be something here that has been added after I have deployed. And here, some change here. This is like the deployment that I just did. OK, I just refreshed the page, and this is how easy it is to deploy at Namshi. So you just go to Slack, ask the bot to deploy this particular application, this particular version, and as I said, you could even be traveling on a train and then using your phone, deployment done. Go back to your work and start testing. So this is a small demo of how we do deployments at Namshi. Let me drag this back here. OK, so let's go back to the presentation. Now let's look into how you could start using chatops in a matter of minutes. Now I think you guys can see the value of it and see that it gives you an edge if you have a chatbot that can do stuff for you. But as I was talking, you might think, OK, there is a daemon process running. I might need to learn Node.js or CoffeeScript or whatever this guy is talking about. And then well, what about this? We don't really have a DevOps team. Can we really do chatops? So sit back and relax. You don't need to set up all these things. There is chatops as a service. The site is called chato.ps, and it can connect to Slack and HipChat, I guess. And then this is like a online version of Whobot. So you just like connect it to your chat client, and boom, you have Whobot running. At least the one that I showed you, the one that I downloaded you, that you could do, I think you can do pug bug me that would show you some pictures. So you could get your bot an avatar and then make it stupid, make it, I don't know, very rude or anything. I mean, it's all up to you on how do you want to give the bot a personality. And then, as I'm more focused into deployments, there is also another SaaS for deployment, and it's called, obviously, DeployBot. So they have recently expired their free plan. I think a lot of us like free stuff. But this is a very good tool if you want to deploy your applications until Taylor does an API for Forge. So maybe after Taylor does an API for Forge, you could just call that particular API and get all your stuff deployed. But I just asked Taylor after his keynote, and he said, OK, the APIs for Forge are not there yet. So probably they are coming in future. Till that time, DeployBot will be a very good solution where you could just call that API, give it a version, give it a git commit basically, or a branch, and then it can deploy that app for you. And they have a very good guide about Laravel. It's almost 10 months old now, but it is very helpful. It will show you how you can deploy Laravel to DigitalOcean. I have used it. I have deployed one application using DeployBot to Laravel, and it was pretty easy. And because it's an API and a protected API, I could have a chatbot just do a REST call to it, and voila, whatever my code changes are there in my staging or live deployment. And to end with, let's ask chatbot to do all the boring tasks so that you can focus on all the nice and productive tasks. And that's about it. Thanks. And we are hiring at Namshi, so if you are a JavaScript developer or a DevOps engineer, you could just come up to me and talk. And yes, you can follow me on Twitter. That's my blog where I rant about stuff. And thank you. Thank you. I have some time, so I would like to take some questions. So anyone who wants to ask a question, Sean has the box. I think you have to speak at the X.
Yes. So this is soft. It can be thrown. You can just talk on the top.
Please shoot the questions.
This is awkward to talk into.
Yeah.
How do you deal with authentication? So, like, I guess anybody on your Slack, anyone on Slack can deploy, basically, it sounds like. So
Great
how do
question.
you deal with authentication?
Great question, great question. I think I missed it in the slide. So we have a ghetto approach to it, to tell you the truth. So we have authentication with our Gmail app, so Google App Authentication. And then based on the user, we have a Google Sheet where it says what you can deploy to what environment. And actually, we have two Google Sheets, one for staging and one for live. And if you are in that Google Sheet, you can deploy. If you are not in that Google Sheet, you cannot deploy. That's one way of dealing with it. Recently, when I did another chatops implementation, or I kind of helped some guys back in Nepal with the app, with a chatops implementation, what we did there is we just did it with like a kind of a private room. So the bot can deploy this particular app only if the command is coming from this particular room, because the bot has context of the room or the channel, whatever you call it, and the user who's giving the command, as I just showed you that it showed at shell. So because of that, you could manage it however is easier for you, but I think the easiest might be just to try to manage it with like a protected room, and you just put like a private room, and you put the people who need to deploy in that room. And I guess many of you here are from web agencies, so you have projects. The project might have a room, and all the people who are related to that project are in that room, and only those people in that room can deploy that project only from that room, and that would solve the problem. Yep, any other questions? I still have 5 minutes, so I can take questions. Right? Yeah, I am here today, tomorrow, so if you have anything, you could just come up to me and ask.
There's one over here.
One more, yep.
Was that? Okay. How would you compare chatops with things like Envoyer, the continuous integration systems? Would you say you complement them add chatops, or do they pretty much replace stuff like Envoyer for you?
Okay, I think it would complement it, but it would all depend upon if you're talking about continuous deployment or continuous delivery. I am not sure exactly the distinction that's skipping my mind right now, but one is like the push to live is automated and the push to live is manual. As soon as the push to live is manual, you could just use a bot to do that particular last form of deployment, one. And even in the other one, where the push to live is automated, you could ask the bot to check the logs or to get the latest version of that particular application. So yes, it would surely complement continuous integration and even continuous delivery and deployment.
Well, since there are no more questions, you said you have about 55 microservices at Namshi.
Yep.
Do they communicate between each other? And if so, do you do that with HTTP, or do you have some other ways of communicating? Because it feels like a lot of overhead for services that can work together.
Great question. So depending upon the application, it generally communicates over HTTP. I would tell you that. But depending upon the application, what we do, or as much as I know, is sometimes 2 or 3 applications are in the same VPC, so they don't need to talk over HTTPS. And because the IPs are known, you kind of trust that if the request is coming from this IP, I can trust it. So in that case, it is over HTTP, but as it is inside the same network and not HTTPS, so you don't need to go through the handshake and all those long process. So in that sense, it is fast, and that's how microservices are communicating at Namshi. But that's I'm just scratching the surface. Okay? I hope it was helpful.